We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend, and it's welcome to Steve and to George. No Mitch at the moment. He was doing the show tonight. We're not sure where he is. I'm sure he's going to join us at some part of the evening, but plenty to talk about. 2 hours with all your usual favourites. And breaking news, well, there's been plenty of that today, whether it's the 6,000 tickets for Sunderland or whether it's the bad news that injuries to Willock and Harvey Barnes are going to extend now into January, when we thought they would probably be back sometime this month. It's bad news. And Tom Dixon, I'm not seeing this, but maybe a bit of positive news. The Botman potentially, nearing a return from a knee injury. Well, I guess it's believe it when you see it. But lots to talk about. Try to accentuate the positives and bat away the negatives on this show, as you know, and give you a bit of a laugh going into your Newcastle United weekend. And Steve, I will talk to you about the Milan game. You missed out on Geordie's here. Geordie's there this week, so give us your views on the Milan game, and you can tackle Benny's question. I guess he says, question for the three amigos: do you think we missed a trick on Wednesday night by not luring AC Milan into over attacking and then hitting them on the counter like they did to us, as they needed to win just for the Europa League? I mean, overall, and I mean, taking that question into consideration, Steve, give us your views on the the Champions League exit.
You know what it is, Steve? I think everything that's been said and everything I've read and picked up on social media is wonderful in hindsight. Press and media coming out with statements about how Eddie was perhaps a little bit naive, perhaps that we should have gone for holding it 1-0, etc., etc. I think the Hawks were out for Eddie Howe and the team regardless. But at the end of the day, Steve, I thought we put up a gallant effort, a very good effort. I thought we were unlucky. On any other given day, we might have got the results. You could sit there, or we could sit here and talk about poor finishing, not taking chances when they came our way, game management. That's another thing that gets thrown at us. But at the end of the day, I think the only thing that I would say on the negative about the performance was that it was European inexperience against a club and a team who got into the semi-final of the Champions League last season and who are well established as European top club, top team. And it just goes to show that you've got to concentrate for 90 minutes. One slight error, one move, one trying to attack and getting caught out, and it can cost you. But I walked out that ground quite proud of the way that we've performed. Naturally disappointed at the result. But again, I thought to myself, you know what? We're still in 3 competitions. We can carry on. We can do whatever we like. Little surprises during the game. I was surprised to see Dan Burn, first of all, on the bench and then coming on ahead of Lewis Hall. And that's another thing that we could perhaps I'm sure we'll get talked about in the chat as the show goes on. And then hearing Dan Burn come out and say that he's come back a little bit earlier than he imagined, and that it's a case of playing through the pain barrier and things like that. And I'm thinking, ooh, what's going on here? Harvey Barnes has been training and now has a breakdown. The same thing with Joe Willock. Somebody's mentioned there that Botman could be back. All these players, I think, we've had a complete review of our medical situation behind the scenes, and I think maybe we need another review because we seem to be pushing players out, and players are breaking down again, which is a bit concerning. But in terms of the game itself, Steve, I thought we performed admirably. Like I said, hindsight, we could have done things differently. But I think at the end of the day, you look at the personnel we had available, we looked at the way we went about the game. There wasn't anything during the game that really upset me or disappointed me about the way that we were performing. We weren't sitting back and thinking, as somebody suggested, let's just see where the game takes us towards the last 10. And there was none of that. We played our normal style of football, and it looked good. It looked good at times. I thought that considering who they are, I thought we played very well. I thought it was some great battles on the pitch. Leo wide, trying to tear our wing backs and full backs apart. Giroud playing the sort of game that we know Giroud has always played. He's all elbows, he's all backing in, he's all pushing, and he's all crying. I thought defensively they held themselves together quite well. And I thought there were probably the odd one or two occasions where we could have perhaps done a little bit better. But I think walked out that ground, and every player should walk out that ground with his head held high, because and the coaching staff, because they give it a really good effort. First time in Europe for so long, Steve. This has just given us a taste of hopefully what's to come in the future with Newcastle United playing regular games in the Champions League. We've now can concentrate on getting that situation back next season and pushing on for the top 4. And with hopefully a few of the players coming back, if the medical team can sort themselves out.
Yeah, George, we know your opinions on the match, obviously, from the other night. But the aftermath and the subsequent fallout on social media, as usual, has been knee-jerk. Some horrendous stuff being put out by some called fans. But yeah, I mean, look, for me, you wipe your nose, you get on with it. I don't think it was a bad first attempt. David Vetch says, great first attempt at Europe for donkey's years, and very proud of the lads.
Yeah. Well, include me. I think I said the other night that I couldn't have been happier because previous platforms had been saying, I hope they had a go for it, that Eddie Howe didn't sit back and really did have a go. And that's what they did. And as Steve rightly says, on another night, we would have won that game easily. Not just won it, but won it easily. So, yeah, it wouldn't go down to chances and all that if you want to. But the bit that you just said is the right bit. Let's savor the moment that we've had. Be proud of what the lads have done and given and showed what Newcastle can do, and get ready for the next one, because that's where I am. I'm now looking forward and licking my lips for the next opportunity whenever it comes. And you can pick all sorts of good things out of it, and people can pick niggly things out of it as well. But overall, as a team, they didn't let us down. They didn't let us down. Yes, Milan caught on the break, but who's to say that if we'd sat back, they wouldn't have done it anyway? No, I'm happy that they give it a go and did themselves proud, did Newcastle proud, and did the fans proud, and the fans did them proud as well. I thought the fans' reaction was brilliant on the night. I was watching it on the telly, unfortunately, because I've just passed a kidney stone, and the last thing you want to be doing is sitting in the cold at St James's Park just after you've passed the kidney stone. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely brilliant, and I've got no comeback at all on anybody to do with that. No comeback on anybody to do with the whole European experience, if you like. Because I think we've acquitted ourselves better than anyone thought we would. as soon as the group was announced, it was the group of death, and we had no chance. People were in the south were talking about we're making fools of ourselves and fools of the Premier League. Well, we didn't. We made fools of those who thought that because of the way we went about it. But no, I'm looking forward to the next time. Let's be giving it a go.
Yeah, okay. It's a big, a big tournament that we're out of, but big experience, and lots of people having their say. Well, we'll go down the route of some of your conversations. And Benny, I've got to agree. He says massive long-term positive in the injury crisis is Miley. He says he's 17 years of age. He's played against Dortmund, PSG, AC Milan, Manchester United, Chelsea, and Everton away. Great experience for the lad. And it has been, hasn't it? I mean, every cloud has a silver lining, Steve.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was one of the skeptics when he was first announced that he was going to be, that we're going to have to rely on him, and just simply because of his age, and having seen him in the reserves or the under 21s and under 18, 19s in the past, I wondered whether he was of age. And then, of course, he had that wonderful summer season, didn't he? In the close season at the tour, where he performed really well, and that sort of raised a few eyebrows. But again, I didn't know whether or not the opportunity would come for him. And if you remember, in the close season and just at the start of the season, a lot of people were talking about him, and a lot of Newcastle fans talking about how he should go out and play in a championship team for a season or 2 seasons, just to be blooded, just to make sure that he could live up to it and had the strength to be able to perform in the same way as Anderson had done previously. But lo and behold, the injury system or the injury problems. And if you remember rightly as well, what Eddie Howe said was we weren't going to lend him out because we thought he would benefit more from being with his family at home. There was something about the lad. Maybe he just thought slight immaturity because of the family situation and these 2 brothers being at the club as well. And maybe it's the thought that family group was far better to A, keep him grounded, but B, to act as a support mechanism. And maybe the family as well thought that, and it would be far better than him being stuck in a flat in Bristol or Bournemouth or, God knows where he could have gone. So that was a good move by the club. That was a good, whoever made that decision, whether it was tied in with Shola, who looks after the loan players, or what. But somebody made the decision that the lad would be better off here and just working with the first team. And thank God that's what happened, because we desperately needed him. It wasn't just a case of another body. What we ended up with was a young lad who showed that he has the mettle, he has the ability, and he has the strength, both physically and mentally, to be able to perform on what is now the highest stage. Champions League football, as I said, played in all the games. Played against Man United, played against Chelsea, the Bear Pit at Everton a couple of weeks ago, and he hasn't let himself down. And just as important, he hasn't let Newcastle United down. So that tells you that there's a big future for that young lad. And also, this is the sort of thing that starts to spread among the academy players, and other academy players will be looking, and other families will be thinking, you know what, we could have a Lewis Miley on our hands if instead of deciding to go and sign for Middlesbrough or Sunderland or wherever, that we stick it out at Newcastle. And with more decent coaches now running the academy, the academy seem to get into a bit of a lull after a couple of seasons for the last couple of seasons. But if they're starting to get their act together as well, then that's brilliant. And I mean, we also went out and we've got a new European scout and a new head of scouting as well. So that again is the sort of thing that encourages people who are thinking about Newcastle United is simply an option. And I'm wondering as well whether the introduction of our new scout, was it Marcel Boot? I think was that what he's called? I think the introduction of him might have something to do with the Lewis Hall situation as well, because he's come in and now he's starting to look far and wide at players who perhaps would feel as though need to come straight into the first team, rather than players like Lewis who have come with a potential. And there's been a lot made about potential with both Livramento and Hall. Livramento looks like he's been given the nod and he's now settling down into the first team, but Lewis doesn't seem to be getting a chance. So we've just got to stick in there, and we know now that if we've got players that Eddie trusts, like Lewis Miley, then the positive side of Newcastle United can only get more positive, Steve.
Yeah, George, Lewis Miley has been a breath of fresh air, hasn't he?
Absolutely. And I think 2 or 3 times on this platform and others I've said, well, Joe a Geordie hero, and maybe he's the Geordie hero because he's got all the makings. Let's face it, the last handful of matches he's played against midfielders who are not worth millions, but hundreds of millions. And he hasn't looked out of place. None of them have made him look bad or even slow or anything. He's looked fully in place as part of the midfield in that team and against the people he was playing against. So, it's great. It's wonderful. And then Steve's absolutely right. Having experienced it many, many years ago, once one of your mates gets into the first team, what a boost it is, because you think, well, maybe I'm next. And I think that's absolutely great. And the kids that have used to working with Miley, it'll be thinking the same thing, I'm sure. And as a family thing, he's got brothers that might follow in his footsteps as well. I always like to see that in a club as well. You have a family routine, it hasn't always worked, but Shola and his brother, it worked for a while. He looked very decent, and we've had others as well. But no, I think breath of fresh air is a good way to describe it. But more than that, for me, I'm fingers crossed. I think we're fastening on to the next Geordie hero, and let's look at it another way as well. If young Anderson gets himself fit again and back to where he should be, we could have a homemade right side or left sided of the team that could cause absolute havoc if they're both on form. So it just cheers me up when I see what he's done, what he's brought to the team, and prospect for the future. Well, they're limitless. If he keeps developing the way he is, he's going to be a superstar, not just a star. He's going to be fantastic. So yeah. And if there's any more, please let's have them. It's funny how adversity sometimes brings something positive. And if there's an adversity in all this injury stuff, well, maybe Lewis Miley is the positive, because we might not have even thought of trying him, but they did keep him back. Steve's absolutely right. And whoever made that decision made a good decision, because, he's a superstar in the making, no question.
Yeah, a lot of people asking about Yankuba Minte, whether we can bring him back from Feyenoord. Of course, he scored his first Champions League goal against Celtic the other night. We can't at this moment in time. Eddie Howe mentioned it in his press conference this morning. There is not a clause in his contract to say that we can bring him back if needed. Of course, Newcastle could do a deal with Feyenoord, compensate them for bringing him back halfway through the loan. But, I'm not sure whether they'll do that. It really just depends what the priority is in the window, and no indication as to what the priority is, what they're looking at. I guess they're just, as Eddie Howe keeps saying, assessing the situation week by week, day by day, because, it's ever changing. As we've seen today with the announcement about Willock and Barnes, we all thought they'd be back in December, and now they're going to miss some really key fixtures and not be back until January. And just so frustrating for Eddie Howe, frustrating for the club, and frustrating for the supporters as well. So it's not a pleasant situation to be in, and one which we could never have seen. And it's really, really, really disappointing. Okay, Lewis Hall is the next topic of conversation. Lots of people asking us about this. If Lewis Hall leaves, it'll be our loss, says John. Someone else's gain. He is a superb prospect, in my opinion. Tom Dixon saying, do you think we should be giving Lewis Hall more game time? This is rather strange, isn't it? And it's something which has built up over the last few weeks, Steve, when opportunities have been there to play Lewis Hall because of the injury crisis that we're in. He played a pretty important role at Old Trafford in the Carabao Cup win against Manchester United, but since then, not a great deal, and you're not sure why. Maybe it looks like, it certainly looks, in all intents and purposes, as perhaps Eddie Howe's changed his mind on him.
He could well have. I mean, who knows what goes on in football and behind the scenes? It could be a commercial decision. We just don't really know. And as I said on the previously, there, we've got a new new head of scouting, and perhaps he's identified somebody else that he thinks that would be better for to come in and strengthen the team. And FFP, I suppose some people are saying, does that play a part? Well, the deal was with an obligation to buy. Now, normally with a transfer, you've got an option to buy, at which point both teams can pull out. But quite often it works totally the opposite with an obligation. It's you're obliged to sign the player. Now, this goes and tells you that within contracts and within deals like this, there are various clauses that can be put in that nobody ever knows about. There could be clauses that said that the lad's got to do X, Y, and Z. You know, whether or not if he plays 6 games, 10 games, 8 games, whatever, then you're obliged to sign him. That's when the obligation kicks in. Maybe there's something in the contract that allows both teams to pull out. Maybe it's Chelsea now seeing the option and deciding they want to keep him. And there could be someone at the other end who's pulling strings and saying, you know what, we don't necessarily aren't necessarily obliged to sell him. It could be something on the other side, Steve. We'll never know until one of our local journalists or national journalists digs a little bit deeper and speaks to those who like to stir the pot a little bit, whether it's an agent or a family member. We'll probably never ever find out. But in terms of Newcastle United, I mean, he came with a you know, I would say a fanfare, because it was a young lad who's a Newcastle United supporter. His family support Newcastle, and you know there was a lot made of it. In fact, there was more made of him coming on loan than there was of Livramento signing, if I remember rightly. Yeah. Yes. And I thought that of the two of them, Livramento, because they both came on in a game, and I thought Livramento was the one who looked like the rabbit in the headlights, and Lewis Hall seemed to perform straight away. Whether or not that was because Livramento was just coming back after an injury and was just taking it easy, or what, or whether it was the position that he was thrown into. But subsequent to that, we've seen the player that we didn't think was versatile in Livramento playing in midfield. We've seen him playing at left back, and we've seen him playing at right back. And yet the player who was versatile, who apparently is a tremendous midfield player, as well as a left back and as well as a left-sided half back and a left-sided wide man, not getting a look in. And it's really, really strange. And I suppose the only people who know the real reason are going to be Hall and Eddie Howe, the coaching squad. So is it something we should concern ourselves with? Well, it's something that we can't do anything about. So I think we've got to concentrate on other aspects of our support, and hope that when Lewis Hall gets an opportunity, if he gets an opportunity, that he shines and performs and shows those who perhaps have a doubt, if there is anyone having a doubt in Newcastle, that he's worthy of the transfer fee. It's a very, very strange situation, Stephen. I don't think we're ever going to put our finger on the exact reason why. Maybe we'll have to wait until Lewis is 35 and he writes his autobiography.
Yeah, Lewis Hall, strange situation, George.
Well, it is, but you know, when I have doubts like this, when I can't get to the bottom of it myself, I always go back to what we say, and what you lads have been saying is trust in the process, trust in Eddie. If there's something happening, you can bet your bottom dollar that Eddie Howe's got his finger on it, or somebody in the back room will have, and it won't be happening for no reason at all. So I'm content that if they're working with the lad to do certain things, I mean, there's all sorts of comments across the bottom about his defensive qualities and all that. Well, that's something for the coach just to sort out. And you know, in the whole process, the way they're looked at now, and underneath the microscope almost, if there's something happening, the coaches at Newcastle will know about it. If there's something needs to be done, the coaches at Newcastle will do it. Or the people in the recruitment staff will do it. It is an odd one, because we've talked here, and I include myself in that, on opportunities when he could have come in, and we thought he would have come in, and he just hasn't. He just hasn't featured at all. and that begs a question. If there's a reason behind that, well, as Steve says, maybe we've got to wait till he writes his autobiography to find the real reason. But I'm concerned in the sense that I'd like to see the young kid having a go, because he did look very good when he was on the first time he was on. And you're right, he was, but did look about a prospect in Livramento. And now I'm a huge Livramento fan. I can't see enough of him. It's an interesting one, but it's not. Again, you two said it. It's not one we can do anything about, or we can just wonder and think about it. And if we get the opportunity to cheer the lad on, well, we'll cheer him on. But it is odd that he hasn't been brought in when he could have been brought in. There's a number of occasions I think we've all said, this is an opportunity for him to get a game, and he just hasn't featured. That's quite worrying. So just to go back where I started, let's trust in the process again. That if there's something happening, the people will know about it, or the people we want to know about it, and that's the backroom staff and the recruitment staff at Newcastle United. And I'm sure they'll sort out what needs to be sorted out in good time.
Okay, as always, plenty to get through on a Friday night. Here's that lovely music. The day I met, we asked you to send in photographs of you with Newcastle United players or management, past or present. And a big thanks to Spenny Mag, who was at one of those fans events at St James's Park and got a chance to meet Dan Ashworth. Spenny, looking smart as a dart there, son, representing yourself and NUFC Matters. And in the process, making it on to the day I met. Thanks, as always, for your support. You can catch Spenny, as always, on the Fans Forum on a Monday night. Somebody saying is Mitch injured. He's on the missing list. I've got to be honest. I've got Stu Penman on the case, who's been ringing him. We're anticipating he's fell asleep after work, so I'm expecting him to click the link when he comes back on. He was okay 2 hours ago, so we'll wait and see and keep you updated. I'm sure he might come in to roll the dice before the end of the show, looking a bit dishevelled. Mark Byers says a big mistake if Tino's going to be a left back full time. The kid's made for right back. Lose a bit of his attacking ability by playing him on his unnatural side, in my opinion. Mitchell Brothers, good evening, says, what do you see as reasonable expectation for the rest of the season? No doubt this is a setback, but it's time to reflect and bounce back. It's a good time to ask this question because we've got a Premier League game against Fulham tomorrow, who 3 or 4 weeks ago would have looked as if it was an easy game, a home banker. On the positives, this is an opportunity to win 7 home games in a row, first time since 2002, 2003. We've then got the Carabao Cup quarter-final on Tuesday night. So much like a couple of weeks ago when we were looking at Chelsea, PSG, Man United, going, oh my God, how are we going to get anything out of these games? And we came away with 6 points and a valuable point in the Champions League. We could be doing the same with this week, Steve, in essence, because it's a big, big week. But I'd say expectations, answering the question, my honest expectations to get to the Carabao Cup final and hopefully win it this year, and then beat Sunderland, and then whatever happens in the FA Cup happens, and then concentrate on the league, and get a decent league finish. So my expectation is once we get our players back, turn of the year now, we will put a run together and we will do okay. But beating Chelsea for me has always been my main focus. I'd like to see us get to the Carabao Cup final again this year. We're doing it the hard way if we do, and going one stage further and winning it. And winning your first trophy suddenly things look a lot different. That would be my expectation.
Yeah, it would be my hope. It's not necessarily expectation, but it's certainly my hope that we can do that, Steve. The Chelsea game is an important game for us, but it's an important game for Chelsea as well, which makes it quite competitive. Fulham, it's interesting what you say about Fulham. Free scoring Fulham, scored 10 in the last 2 games that they played. Cannot score away, cannot pick up away points though. I think they've only won 1 game this season away from home. And as you say, we're going into what could be our 7th straight win at home. So for that reason alone, it puts Newcastle as firm favourites on Saturday at a 3 o'clock kickoff as well, Steve. These are starting to become regular for us. That's cool with what's going on. I mean, we've certainly got to regroup. We know that we've got to get players back off the treatment table. We've also got to look at some of the players who are not getting a game, and whether or not we can move those players on. I'll not call them deadwood. Some people might, but there are players in the squad who are just not getting a look in. We don't have to worry and concentrate on the 23 question that we had for the Champions League. We've got players that are coming back into reckoning, and they're not coming out one week and back in available the following week, etc. We can get a little bit more continuity about a performance as well. We can start doing things on the training pitch. Players can rest properly. Players can wind down from a game and then wind back up later in the week without the concern of a midweek game once we get this Chelsea fixture out of the way. All of these are little things that other clubs that have been involved in European football and it's steeped in them, are well organised to be able to do. But it's been new and been fresh for us. So in that respect alone, it's been a massive learning curve for the football club and a learning curve for Eddie Howe. Remember, he hadn't played in Europe until, we trooped out in Milan. That was his first experience of European football. And the same with a number of our backroom staff. And there was only 5 players, I think, who had played in European football in the past. So great strides by the football club, great experience, but we know that they're now going to want more. The appetite's going to be there. We can't fault the attitude. So we've got to roll our socks up. We can't let our heads drop. We can't have players sitting there and complaining and saying how disappointed they are. And we can't have fans starting to be disappointed and being down at the weekend. We go back in. We support this football club for one reason and one reason only, and that's because we love football. We love Newcastle United, and we've got to show that how proud we are of the performances that the lads have put in the last few weeks, and we've got to get behind them to get over this other little blip of the same players having to be selected time and time again because of the injury situation. A cup run, yes, Coca-Cola Cup, Carabao Cup, whatever it's called these days. Worthington Cup, it's been called everything, hasn't it, over the years? It's like, let's just shall we just call it the League Cup? That would be dead easy, wouldn't it? A run there.
What a good idea.
Yeah, a run for me in the FA Cup, though. The FA Cup is the one that still holds an awful lot of sway, an awful lot of kudos. It'd be great to win the FA Cup. It would be fabulous to win anything. I mean, it's been so long. But there's no reason why a club like Newcastle United can't target both cups and a top 4 finish. Can you imagine if we did that? Imagine if we got into 2 cup finals and a top 4 finish. Dear me, that would be absolutely superb. And doing it with the squad we've got, with the injuries that we've had, and the only people who seem to be moaning about the injuries seem to be the sort of certain elements of the press. I'm not hearing Newcastle fans complain about injury. I'm hearing other clubs complaining about having 4 and 5 and 6 players out, not 13. We've just rolled our sleeves up, haven't we, as a football club, and got on with it. And we've taken that attitude from Eddie Howe. And that for that reason alone, you've got to be proud of the way that the players have performed. I think I can only recall one game where I felt as though there was an issue. Played off the park. And there's an awful lot being said about being tired and all that type of thing. And I just think you can make any excuse. When you get beat, you normally get beat off a team who's played better than you, unless it's VAR. But I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole.
Expectations, George, for you for the rest of the season?
Well, you and Steve have summed it up, really. Cups, yeah, great. FA Cup, fantastic. I mean, you know, my background with the family going to so many cup finals, and I've been to quite a couple as well, but I've never seen me win one. No, that would be brilliant. You know, even Carabao Cup or League Cup, whatever you want to call it. Yes, no reason why we shouldn't. Once all the squad's fit again, and we get back into a routine of having the kind of rotation that we're used to, the kind of pressure we can put on other teams, and we start doing that again. We're still 7th in the league. And the big thing that's helped over this period where we've been in trouble is that they've all been picking points off each other. And one or two getting beat off people that shouldn't have been getting beat off. So they're still within touching distance. And the way Arsenal have this nasty habit of getting right well ahead and suddenly collapsing at the end, well, we can help them to do that. So I think we're still in it all. It's still up for grabs. Some of it will take a bit of hard pushing, but top four's eminently doable in my view. Carabao Cup, well, we've knocked out some of the favourites on the way already. Let's knock another one out when we go to Chelsea and take it forward from there. And then in the FA Cup, well, we all talk about must-win games. Well, that one's a must-win game for me. You know, I'd sacrifice a lot to make sure that's a win in the bag. And a real cup run would be fantastic, right to the final, both finals. You said it, Steve. Why not two cup finals and a top four finish? What a season that would be after the season we've just had. And can I take you back 2 years and look what we're looking at? The dross we're looking at then. You know, we're staying over our shoulders at the championship and hanging on with our fingernails, and everybody on TV and in the newspaper saying they haven't got a chance. They're down. No team that's been there by Christmas has ever succeeded in getting out of it. Well, we did, lads, and we're still here, and we've just been in the European Cup, and we'll be in it next year. Believe me, we'll be in it next year because we get a top four finish, and I think we could get there on the basis of one of Carabao Cup win as well. So yeah, that's my expectations. Perhaps I'm an optimist as I am in most things, but I'm also a greedy little duck because I want it all. I want it all. I don't just want a little bit. I want it all. And the fans have been brilliant. Going to the match, oh, you'd be sick of hearing me say that, but I'm going to say it again. Going to the match has become what I loved about going to the match, even from when I was a little one. It's an experience. And going to the match now is an experience. And it's thanks to the fans themselves. It's thanks to War Flags. It's thanks to how everybody gets on with everybody else, and the atmosphere is great. So it's been a good season. Yes, we're disappointed for last week, but it's still been a great season. And as everybody on the bottoms kept saying, the 5-year plan, we haven't even finished year 3 yet, and look where we are. So yeah, my expectations are more of the same, please. That's all I'll say. More of the same.
Happy birthday to Dawson, who is Spenny's son. He's watching tonight. I hope you have a good day and a good night. And your dad's got you plenty of presents. But enjoy the show, and hopefully you get 3 points off Fulham tomorrow as well to make it a perfect birthday weekend. Okay, lots of other comments coming in. Chantel says, I don't like it that Almiron's getting a lot of hate for not using his right foot. The lad gave 100% every game. I personally think he is good. And Gary asking $1 million question. Do the Amigos think the upcoming transfer window will be permanent signings or loan deals? Well, I ultimately think it's going to be a little bit of both. I still think there'll be a permanent transfer in there. But I also think they will be open to loan deals, Steve. I can't see Newcastle splashing out big. They'll be hoping a lot of the players come back. It's got to be the right players at the right time, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I mean, we've also got to look at our long-term injuries, players that have had operations that, players that should have had operations and haven't, and look as though they're going to have one now. There's an awful lot of floating around there, players that, like I said earlier, who are just not getting a look in and could easily be moved on. It's that balancing act. I don't think necessarily FFP comes into it as much as we might imagine. Players moving in and out, and just how you go about that, how what you can pick up. You've got to create a gap in the squad as well. But every football club should be looking and will be looking and will be aware that if the right player comes along at the right price, the right time, then you go for them, regardless of where it's going to end up. And then you make the necessary changes that have to be made to accommodate that. We've got some key positions that we perhaps need to fill. Strike as a position, I think that we should have filled in the close season and didn't. And I think that's proved when we've got Wilson and Isak, who both appear to be made of glass at times. The goalkeeping situation, we're now down to 3. Potentially 2. Dubravka played 2 games, and all of a sudden we were hearing that he was carrying an injury. If Dubravka goes down, then that just leaves you with Karius and Gillespie, and then you're looking at kids from the academy or the under 18s. These are all the things that top flight clubs shouldn't have to worry about. And this is where the club is ever evolving. You'll also look at players' age. I mean, you look at Dubravka and might seem young at 34 for a goalkeeper, because you hear of goalkeepers going on to 37, 38, 39-year-old. I think that aspect of the games is changing slightly. I think now people are looking at younger. Somebody said there, Mark, he said that Dubravka was ill, not injured. I read that he was injured, not ill. But it just goes to show, doesn't it? I mean, different newspapers tell you different things. There was. It's a bit like at Man United, isn't it? When you've got players that suddenly are ill, and you're thinking, hang on, you desperately need that player, and you're saying he was ill, yet you had him on the bench the week before, and you had him on the bench the following week. And this type of thing, and then you're taking them off, and this type of thing. I find that illness is often an excuse at times. You can all play with a cold, you can all play with an upset tummy if you have to. So I think there's question marks that'll hang over Dubravka for as long as Pope's out, and I think that's an area that the supporters are going to carry on talking about. It's a vital position in the team. I mentioned it last week, I think, where I said that it's one of the most difficult positions to come in and perform, because sometimes, unlike an outfield player where you're on the bench and you get an opportunity to come on the last 10 minutes here, last 10 minutes there, maybe start a game, start the Carabao, whatever it happens to be. And with a goalkeeper, sometimes they can sit for 20, 25, 30 games on the bench. And then all of a sudden they get called upon and they're expected to be absolutely 100% tip-top, ready to go. I don't think there are any other positions like that in on the bench in a team. Striker, you always get the opportunity. Defenders, you always get the opportunity. But with a goalkeeper, you can sometimes sit there, like I say, for 25, 30 games, if not longer. I think Pope played virtually every league game last season. So I think and I agree, Mark. I think we will go out and get a top class goalkeeper. Whether they manage to get him in January, as most of the top class goalkeepers are still in the Champions League, is another matter. Whether they'll go for De Gea, or people are now talking about Ramsdale. Although I understand Ramsdale is now being talked about for Chelsea, because they have a problem with their goalkeeper now who's injured. So I think there's going to be some interesting manoeuvring going on, and some interesting bartering taking place. But I think we've got to strengthen. There's no question about that, because if a club wants to go forward, there's no sentiment. You move players on. If we've been here 5, 6, 7, 8 years, they move on. The sentiment goes out of the window, because that's why players are paid so well. They're paid good money because there's no sentiment in the game. Their reward is that they move on, and they get a contract for slightly longer than the one that they've had at the previous club, and that they're Romanies. That's how it works. And then squads evolve, teams evolve, and we move on. And we've just got to get used to that as fans. We can have our favourites, but eventually your favourite's going to move on. We had it back in the 70s with Malcolm. He was absolutely our number one. And then, within 2 years of following Malcolm's career from 74 to 76, previous obviously followed him earlier, but at that particular time, really, really, being a hero, you suddenly find that he starts the following season in an Arsenal shirt, and you're gutted. I think it's slightly different now with Newcastle. I think we're going to be moving on players because we're getting better in. There's some players coming up to a certain age where it'll be their last move as well, and they may be itching for a move. They've had their opportunity in the Champions League, and perhaps feeling as though, well, come next season, that opportunity might not be as great. I might not get the run-ins that I've had in the Champions League this season. I'm thinking of Wilson as an example. If we're going to go for a new striker, Wilson probably dropped down in the pecking order behind Isak. So it all falls into place, and that's how many times have we said that's why Eddie gets paid and we don't.
Transfers are interesting. De Gea, goalkeepers is the topic of conversation, George. Lots of people talking about De Gea. I think they're looking at Dubravka's performances in the last 3 games, and picking him out. He's conceded 3 at Everton, 4 at Spurs, 2 against AC Milan. It's a hell of a set of games to come into, though, when you haven't been playing for a great deal of time. But what's your overall view? Do you think Newcastle will go for a little bit of both? Maybe a permanent move, maybe a couple of loans?
I think we've got to accept that it'll probably be a bit of both again. And we've got to make sure that the lads that are coming back get the right support as well. So I think it'll be a bit of both. There'll be some loans and there'll be some permanent ones. The goalkeeping situation I just find incredible. Yes, he hasn't played, but top goalkeepers make their money because they can step onto the pitch at a moment's notice and make the save of the season. If they cannot, they're not top goalkeepers anymore. It's as simple as that for me. That's why they're paid what they're paid. So Dubravka's, for me, a total disappointment. I struggle to get over the rubbish about him going to Manchester United and all that, and having to come back with his tail between his legs. But in terms of his performance of the games that he's had since he come back on the team, not good enough. Just not good enough. He's really need. We really need to move on from him, and at least give Karius a go. Give Karius a try. And as I say, the essence of the great goalkeepers, even though great ones we've had, Shea, Given, Ronnie Simpson, way back, and they were capable of doing absolutely nothing for 89 minutes. And then 89 minutes and 60 seconds, they would make the save of the century. And were quite capable of doing that game after game if necessary. And so this business about game time, with goalkeepers, it's slightly different. Theirs is about agility and concentration, absolutely minute concentration in terms of the game. So if De Gea's fit, and I'm sure they wouldn't even talk to him if he wasn't, he's not a bad option as a stand-in, as a lone keeper. But I'm not sure I would want him as full-term. I'm not sure he'd come for full-time anyway, because he's used to bigger wages than we can pay. Although at the moment he can't be getting any at all. So he should be grateful if we do offer him something. But he's... I still find what happened to him at Manchester United just absolutely appalling. And That just beggars belief what they did to that lad. And some would argue, say, well, they did nothing. Well, what I can read, they did too much. The other thing is that he was outstanding in the Premiership for season after season for a while. What suddenly changed that? Anyway, if he was to come, I wouldn't be unhappy about that as a loan deal to start with. And if he made his mark, well, fine. That's up to the club to decide what they want to do about that. Across the field, well, we're in the same boat as we've been for a while, but a little bit more harsher now because of the injury situation. And Steve's right. We need to think about the injuries that we've got that are long term. Are they going to come back as good as they were before? Or are they going to be? When are they actually going to kick a ball again for us? That all got to come into the mix as to deciding who and who we buy and who we loan and in what positions. So it's a good mix, I think, of permanent signings and loan signings. And you're right to highlight the goalkeeping position. It needs sorting out. There's no question about that. Somebody asked on the strap before, what if Pope's shoulder isn't as good as it was before? Well, it's the one joint, I've got to say, very rarely goes back to where it was. And people tend to have a history, once it's come out, they have a history of going back and back. I mean, we've got some good ankle examples in the club of look at Stephen Taylor, how many times his has popped out and so on. So, all of that's got to be considered. But I see what people are saying, and I agree. Goalkeeper's an absolute must. Do something about that. And Gordon Marshall was a good goalkeeper as well. And across the field, well, we've got to think about a striker. I mean, you lads have already said it. The two that we've got, they're like the glass slippers, aren't they? They don't move without they end up sitting on the backside and so on. The other strap I noticed was somebody defending Almiron. In terms of effort, in terms of pace, in terms of skill, I'll defend them Almiron as well. His left foot business is indefensible. He's a professional footballer, paid a lot of money to apply his trade. He should be at least to be marginally good with his non-kicking foot. And I can think of dozens of lads that rolled into St James's Park, very similar to him over the years, but managed to at least perform a little bit on the wrong foot because of the work that they did off the pitch. Look at the way look at Trippier. Look at his ability to kill the ball either right or left. Livramento even, there's a young player. He's comfortable either side. Somebody's saying he shouldn't play on his unnatural side. That's sometimes a bonus. Having been a right-footed player that played on the left side most of my career, it was sometimes a bonus. So, but the question that was posed, loans and permanent, it'll be a big mix this time.
Yeah, okay, I would agree. I think there will be a lot of there'll be a lot of to and fro, I think, for Newcastle in this window. It might be a little bit more exciting than we think it's going to be. There's big problems though at the club with injuries, and they're just going to have to assess what the situation is as they come into January. I'm sure they've got a list compiled, despite Eddie denying any list and being in circulation, but they're not that daft. They're not going to go into a transfer window without an idea of A, what they can spend, and B, what they want to spend it on. So we will, as always, watch with interest. And before we go to the ads, let's have a little bit of light relief and have Tweet of the Week. And I've got to say a big thank you, as always, to my regulars who send in tweets. I've got a big Facebook following who tend to send them on a regular basis. So a special thank you to Jimmy Wilson, who is a regular, to Paul Whitfield, who is another regular, Stephen Kennedy, who's another guy who sends them in. Rita, of course, who sends us the odd lookalike, as we all know. But big thank you to you guys. You've been superb throughout the year. Some absolutely hilarious ones. And you've created a bit of a Christmas theme this week. Elf on the Shelf, we know, is quite popular at this time of year. I've been sent some absolutely bizarre ones. There's your first. And this one, the elf was delicious. I had the cookies for dessert. Thanks, Santa. Don't show that to your kids, folks. If you're feeling a little bit peckish at Christmas, nothing like a minge pie. There you go. Take your pick from 1 to 12. That apparently is a real thing. So you can actually buy that. And there's a minge tart just for good measure next to the Wrigley's chewing gum, gluten-free and Costa coffee. What on earth possesses them to come up with a name like that? I will never know. Star Trek, as you know, we like to do these. They've got the Christmas jumpers on. Sweaters are illogical. It takes 3 sheep to make just one. I didn't even know they could knit, says Captain Kirk. And some dodgy games going about down Biker. Connectacy. The vertical floor checkers game.
Oh, dear.
They've had better days. And here he is. He's driving home for Christmas. Chris Rea.
Brilliant, that.
And you've heard of Elf on a Shelf. Well, here's Deer on the Gear. And anyone know anyone called Leon that might want these? I ordered Noel, but they sent me the wrong one. Classic that. Like, we all knew a mate who would get that wrong, by the way. Stephen Kennedy, thanks for this one. He went, the first no L.
Oh, dear me.
Oh, dear.
Very good. That very good. And we ain't going to find 3 wise men and a virgin in this town.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
And Amazon delivery here. Damn it, Alexa. I said cheeses. Pretty safe to say he did see us last night. Thanks for that one, Paul.
Oh, dear me.
And if you're thinking of a calendar, lads, for your loved one or lasses, how about this? Dogs pooping in beautiful places.
Dear me.
Wow.
2024 calendar.
Dear me.
That's a classic. And a tweet of the week, Christmas in Sunderland from Jimmy, ankle monitor. My first ankle monitor. Very good. And name the Christmas song, lads.
Mistletoe and Wine.
Mistletoe and Wine.
Very good. Very good. We're moving on to the nativity now. Kids got a letter telling them to dress as elves. Someone came as Elvis. I can't breathe. And there we go. That's a perfect nativity scene. Kieran Trippier, Bruno and Joe Linton, and Eddie Howe in the manger.
Classic.
Brilliant, that, David. My children keep finding their Christmas presents that I've hidden around the house. Someone suggested I should just keep them in the attic. It's now 3 a.m. and the constant crying and whinging is keeping me awake. I don't like spiders, or I don't like it up here. It's really dark. It's starting to get on my nerves now. Any suggestions? And got the mother-in-law one of these robot vacuum cleaners for Christmas, lads. And how much money do you have left after Christmas shopping?
Yeah.
Very good.
And this is a great one as well. Show off.
Fantastic, that.
And just finished decorating our Christmas tree. That's from Warwick Davis. That was brilliant, by the way.
Superb, that. Well done, mate.
Warwick Davis, best known for being an Ewok, I think, and presenting some game show.
Yes, yeah.
Superb, that. Thank you. And Keith Patterson, what's wrong with Comet? His wife took off to Vegas and blew $50.
Oh, typical Keith.
Oh, dear, Keith.
Been a tough year, but the tree's up in someone's house. I know people who've got a tree like that, by the way. And thanks to Stephen Kennedy, this one, green and salty, just like my nuts. The green.
Yeah, me. Mr. Pistachio.
Mr. Pistachio. And don't worry, lads, Christmas is coming.
Yes. Yep. One more.
Time to chuck away all the old underwear, lads, and socks. 4 stages of a man's life. 1, you believe in Santa. 2, you don't believe in Santa. 3, you are Santa. And 4, you look like Santa.
That's great, that.
And Ian Hull, thanks for this one. Who is the meanest reindeer in Santa's herd? Olive. Well, you've heard the song. Olive, the other reindeer, used to laugh and call him names. And seasonal cutbacks from Deddy. We thought we'd try something a bit different this year. Is that a seagull? And this one was brilliant. I love this. Hey, hey, we're the people. A monkey say we're people around.
Very clever.
I had to put this up as well. I think I missed this last week, but my God, what was Ian Wright wearing, lads? That was the coat we were talking about. Is he having a laugh? Was that real?
That was him. That was him.
Imposing that. He was wearing a big coat, but it's not that. Have you seen the size of the microphone, for God's sake?
Yeah.
And this was in a shop window. Clit bang, hob cleaner.
Clit bang, it should have been.
Try not to get somebody who has difficulty spelling when you're putting signs in your shop as the news there. And there's some Sasquatch foreskins. I think I'll give them a miss. From Great Dick, apparently.
Yeah, mate.
And if you're going to build a monument as well, it's probably best not to get this designer in. They made it into a landmark, and men still can't find it. Lindsay Lohan's giving birth to a baby boy. Fred replies, Jesus Christ, he's big. And this one, on a train in Scotland, the note on the door says, keep out bagpipe blowing area. And I got sacked last night from the Salvation Army soup kitchen. All I said was, hurry up, some of us have got homes to go to.
Oh.
And my girlfriend invited me to her house where I found her sister alone. So I sat there waiting for my girlfriend while her unbelievably sexy sister was getting there with me. A few moments go by, then she comes up next to me and whispers in my ear, we should have sex before my sister comes home. I immediately got up and turned around and walked to my car. I found my girlfriend standing by the door, at which point she hugged me and said, you've won my trust. Moral of the story, always keep your condoms in your car. And when Maureen's husband asked her what she wanted for birthday and she said something to make her knickers wet, this wasn't what she had in mind.
Washing machine.
And a new pub has opened up in this neighbourhood. In the sleepy village of Urbam, near the town of Tillet, lives a lady by the name of Linda Likes. She owns the local pub. It's called the Cock Inn, and her address is Linda Likes, the Cock Inn, Urbam, Tillet, Herts.
Oh, dear me.
I wouldn't send a Christmas card.
We'll spend a week thinking of that.
I wouldn't send a Christmas card to that house. Daddy, what did you do to help fight climate change? I glued my face to a road. And here's your top 4 this week. After 35 years of loyal service, they finally found out he doesn't actually work there. Top 3. How many degrees should I set the wash to? Well, what does it say on the T-shirt? Pink Floyd.
Brilliant, that.
Gradient. This one from Stephen Kennedy. Legs open as usual. And that was it. That was your winning one, actually. So thank you for all your tweets. Great stuff. Keep them coming in. We have got an NUFC Matters Facebook page. Lots of people saying I haven't got Twitter, I haven't got X, I can't send you them on there. If you go to NUFC Matters on Facebook, join the page. Just click join. It's free to join, and you can stick them on there. We get a few there from Stephen Kennedy and the like. So please stick them on there, and we will endeavour to find them and feature them next week. Okay, a little bit later than usual. We are halfway through the show, so go and put the kettle on, go and get a drink. But make sure you watch the ads, because the sponsors do like you to take them in and go and buy their wares. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website, mrvickys.co.uk, or drop them an email, info@mrvickys.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the Northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460 or mobiles 0791 666 4174 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or give them a call, 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also a part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at thetooneuk.com. We've also got an event coming up next year. It's in January the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. It's an evening with Nobby Solano. Tickets are available on voucher for £20. Don't forget, Supermac and Gibbo do every pre-match at Louis Liquor Store. It's free entry, children welcome, and there is great food by Fed's Fried Chicken. They're usually on pre-match and sometimes post-match at Louis Liquor Store. Okay, just with regards to that, there's no talking at Louis until the 13th of January now. Basically, they're just having a couple of weeks off with the old Christmas break and, Christmas hours, etc. So 13th of January is the next one. And I believe Malcolm's working at the ground. So it is Gibbo and Lee Clark on the 13th of January. And don't miss out on that Solano gig. Tickets are £20 on voucher. There's only 40 tickets left for that, so get yourself along. They're always good nights, those, and Nobby's great entertainment. And big thank you to Andre and all the lads from the Bulgarian Supporters Club who looked after us last weekend. A long trip, a long way to go to do a talking, but we had an absolutely fantastic time. They looked after us over there. Big thanks to Andre for pulling it all together. Nobby had a great time, and it was trains, planes and automobiles, but we got there and back safely. And thank you for that. And yes, we are doing the Amigos next week. Time to be confirmed. Probably won't be 2 hours. I think we'll probably be able to squeeze an hour and a half in. I just need to sort it out with the lads. But we are doing an Amigos on Friday next week, and it will be live. And I am going to try and squeeze in at some point this week and Ask George. When I get that sorted, I'll probably put a shout out on the shows and collate the questions, and then me and George will do an hour and stick that out over Christmas as well, because George says he fancies doing something a bit different, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, Sunderland away, Steve. It's been announced today, just before we came on air, 6,000 tickets for Newcastle. Driving the Mackhams up the wall, that, by the way. They're not very happy at all. And the natives are restless again. Newcastle fans a bit upset in the sense that now, with this particular game, we aren't going to get our tickets until we get on a bus. Usually we can get on the train, go down to Sunderland under our own steam, or travel down there ourselves. But what they're wanting to do is they're putting on free buses for us all. And we have to basically get on, and we get our ticket as we get on the bus from a certain time up till 11 o'clock. So I've got to be honest, I'm over the moon with the ticket allocation. 45 points is where it starts. And, you know, essentially that they go on sale on Monday. But I get that awful feeling we're being treated like kids. I've just seen somebody use the word mollycoddling. Mark Byers, he said, ridiculous that they're mollycoddling people that travel on a bus, mind. Wow. I mean, free bus is great. I just find it a bit ridiculous that we've all got to go and travel on the bus. It should be freedom of choice for me. And we've done so well with the derby games in recent years. I don't understand why they've done this. There'll be a reason, I guess. I suppose some of the stuff that I'm getting backwards and forwards is that had we not done this, we would have only got 2,500 tickets. Now, I'm not sure who said that, whether that's Northumbria Police's advice, whether that's the council's advice, whether that's the football club or the FA's advice. I've got no idea where that's come from, but there does seem that seems to have come from Newcastle United Supporters Club. They seem to be privy to some information. They seem to have put that out onto social media. But yeah, I found, over the moon with the tickets. Just a bit disappointed, I think, mate, with that situation.
Yeah, I think it's reading some of the comments and reading some of the tweets earlier. It seems to be that we're having to settle for the best of a bad job. The fact that we've been given 6,000 allocation, the fact that the allocation is down to as lowest number that you could possibly think of in 45, in terms of points, loyalty points. Which has given everybody a lot more opportunity. I wonder how many people won't go because they're being forced to then travel on the coach. I know lots of people who will be coming up from the south, London Mags, etc. Do they now have to go into town to then hop onto a bus? People traveling from Scotland, they've now got to get out and into town and then travel on a bus. You've got people come from the West Country, from the west side of Northumberland, and now they're finding themselves, going to have to come in, park in town, then hop on a bus, then come all the way back, and then continue. All of these little things. We'll never get to the bottom of why it's happened. There'll be all sorts of rumours flying around. There'll be all sorts of comments. As you say, is it Northumbria Police? Is it the SAG, the Security Advisory Group for Sunderland? Is it the local authority? The local authority are tied in with the SAG anyway. They're all one and the same almost. Is it Newcastle United themselves? Have Newcastle United been forced to accept this as a proviso, and then the fact that they're then going to dish the tickets out on the day on the bus as you get on? It does seem like mollycoddling that we're adults, we're grown adults. Has Sunderland Football Club intervened in some way and made representation that they were doing this in the hope that Newcastle United didn't take up the allocation of that because they're going to make it so difficult or being so awkward? I suspect, if I'm being true to myself, that my thought is that it's the police and the police only who have thrown this one. They're seeing it as the easy option. Presumably the coaches drive along Western Way, and then when they get to the ground, they'll flip them in just before on the side road, just before you get to the swimming pool. and then they'll be all parked in there. You're at the back of the ground, you're at where the away section fans are, and then there'll be a massive police presence. And then you have to stand in a great big long queue and be escorted around that side of the ground to get in. It's I think that are we now back into those days simply because of history? Is it expediency? Is it convenience? But for me, it smacks of, we're not being treated like adults. We're being treated like a bunch of school kids on a school trip again. And I suppose, there will be people out there going, well, at least we're going. There'll be lads in NUSC who'll say, well, at least we're getting a decent allocation, and that was probably their number one priority in terms of any conversations they've had with the football club or any representation they made through Thomas and the FSA. I'm sure they've had an input into it, and they'll be saying, what we've managed to squeeze is 6,000. So the team is going to get the biggest backing that we could possibly have, or that was possibly going to be made available to us. And it could have been worse. It could have been 2,500. And you can understand on a pragmatic side them saying that, but it does leave me thinking once again, football fans and only football fans are liable to be treated totally different to the rest of society. You can have marches for Palestine and marches for Israel that generate bigger crowds and that get policed. You can have marches for anything, and yet that with threats, and yet when it comes to a football match, they can't get 6,000 people heading to a game, using public transport, using their own way, taking their own safety, and the police being unable to police it. The police have taken the easiest option, and it's disappointing from that respect. But like I say, we're going to have to live with it, Steve. There's nothing. All the griping we can have isn't any better. It's not. Nobody's going to suddenly change their mind. And it goes back as well to this e-ticketing system, and it goes back to ticketing in general. Having tickets dished out you on the bus. It's like Barcelona 1997 when you get on the bus and you've got a €4 ticket that somebody's charged you €75 for, or whatever it was at the time. It wasn't euros, it was pesetas, but it worked out at £4, and yet you were being charged like 30 odd quid. It's
Newcastle United Supporters Club put out a tweet saying earlier this week we were asked for our feedback on plans for an allocation of 6,000 tickets on the provision that transport was used. Whilst bubble trips aren't ideal and should not be the norm, on this occasion we agreed that the maximum possible number of supporters should attend the derby. And on Newcastle's official website, travel groups will also not be in operation for this match. In order to sit together at the Stadium of Light, supporters and friends and family groups must arrive at St James's Park and board the official bus service together. Once on board, club staff will endeavour to distribute tickets to such groups on request. Lead bookers will receive the bus tickets for all members of their groups and responsible for distributing to the named season ticket holder attending. No duplicate bus tickets will be issued. What time do the buses leave? Services will leave from St James's Park from 9:30 a.m. on Saturday the 6th of January, with a final service departing at 11 a.m. Supporters must arrive by no later than 10:45 a.m., 15 minutes before the final departure time, as there will be no other way to collect a valid match ticket. Wow, honestly.
Nothing there about ID either. You're going to take your passport. You're going to take some ID as well. God, I mean, this is it's crazy that, Steve. I mean, the fact that, and this is the problem with it when you get to a ground and it's all seater, isn't it? Everybody now, not only are you getting in the ground, then you want to sit with your mates. You just, at the end of the day, you should be happy you're getting in the ground, I suppose. But no, it's the complications that come from once you start fiddling around with ticket allocations and how you've got to get into it. And then this additional faff of, can you all sit with your mates? Can you sit together? Families want to be together. It's for a lot of people, it's going to be easier to just say, you know what, and maybe that's why it's 45 loyalty points. A lot of people are going to go, I'll just watch it on the TV. It's too much hassle, far too much hassle. But I mean, I understand where NUSC are coming from, and the priority was to get as many people as you can in, and it's the best of a bad job, and it's something that nothing that they can do anything about. It's a fait accompli that somebody somewhere's made that decision, and whether you're a member of NUSC, whether you're a member of NUST, whether you're just a normal fan who isn't a member of any group, we're all being tarred with the same brush. We're all being penalised. We're all being forced to travel 15 miles down the road for an FA Cup third round tie, and be treated like cattle.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it. I mean, I'm just reading NUST's 2-page release on this. Of course, they will have been consulted as well. They're saying ultimately that, from their perspective, that, again, the ticket allocation is high because we've agreed to the bubble, but it should not. But they've said it shouldn't be a precedent for future derby games. I mean, that's if there is any in the near future. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, wow, it's a strange situation to be in for Newcastle fans, but one where they're going to have to accept it. And I can imagine a few people having a few people around for a drink before they get on the bus, and no doubt there'll be one or two bars who will open slightly earlier, although the police will probably be watching that as well. Mark Byers makes a valid opinion, though. He says, did they also provide a packed lunch with Kiora and Dairy Lee triangles? I mean, I hope so, mate, because we'll have plenty of time sitting on that bus for what should be an easy journey. Is going to turn out into a bit of a faff on there and back. So, yeah, George, being treated like kids, really.
Absolutely. And I see the big hand of security on top of all of that. I'm glad you mentioned the e-ticket and stuff, because the staff on the bus, they're going to have their wits about them to make sure that the people get the right tickets, aren't they? It sounds like a nightmare to me. And indeed, as Steve says, well, have you got your driving license, your passport, whatever? No, it's just terrific. The odd thing for me is, you see, it takes me back 50, 60, 70 bloody years, because in days gone by, when we went to away games, cup games from here, at least my family did, we used to go with Alfie Hollands' bus. Alfie Hollands used to buy all the tickets, and when you got on the Hollands' bus and paid your bus fare, you got your ticket off Alfie Hollands. and that's how it worked, and everybody was happy with that. But this is as you say, it's like manoeuvring a group of kids on a school picnic. In fact, it's even worse than that in many ways. So, I hope it's not a model for future. It takes a lot of the sting out of, all of the pleasure out of it all when you've got to jump through all these hoops, and as you said, people will still find a way to have a drink before they get on the bus. So,
maybe it's the police, George. Maybe it's the policing, George. Maybe Sunderland. Maybe it's the policing. Maybe Sunderland couldn't afford the policing.
Oh, I think. Well, I that's why I said at the beginning, it's the big hand of security on top of this, and I think the big hand's probably Northumbria Police. But Steve's right. If we were organising 100,000 to go and protest about Palestine, they would be pleased and nobody'd say nothing about it. And yet, football fans, we're always treated as the enemy almost. I remember coming back from a cup tie at Walsall. We got beat, for God's sake. It was awful. And on the way back, we decided we'd pull into one of the villages off the A1, Borough Bridge, to have a drink and something to eat before we came home. And we got into the foyer of this hotel, and the manager threw out because we're football supporters and because we had mud on our shoes because we've been standing in the muddy Walsall ground. And we're protesting then. Well, this is worse. It just beggars belief in some ways. But you're right, Steve. I see the big hand of Northumbria Police on all of this, and the fact that the only way they would agree to us having that many with Sunderland was if we agreed to go in this bubble situation with the buses. The other experience of mine I've mentioned on here before is, you see, my father and I at the weekend when I was much younger, if we could find a football match, we'd go and see it. if Newcastle was away. If it would sometimes Gateshead, but quite often it was Joker Park. And we used to walk through the tunnel and get on the bus at Jarrah. Well, it was the bloody Sunderland supporters bus who were getting on. They used to take the mickey out because they knew who we were. But it was all good banter. It was all good fun. Wow, couldn't do that these days. It would be a bloody riot. No, it's somebody's got it right. It treat me like kids, and if it's the only way we can get tickets, then you have to put up with it. My worry is if it goes wrong, then what happens? But no, as I say, big hand of Northumbria Police on that one, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
you mentioned the attendance. You mentioned the police inside. The club only pays for the policing inside the ground. Outside the ground, they don't pay a penny. So it's the outside ground.
So somebody somewhere may have just said we don't want to pay that because it's a one-off game.
Yeah, they could well have, but it's the fact that Northumbria Police. It's going to be a lot easier for them to police this game than it would have been if people had been travelling, and that's the only thing that they're thrown at that they can throw at, and straight away everybody has to kowtow to what Northumbria Police decide. That's the way it'll have worked. I've been to those meetings before. We used to have them. When we were part of the fans forum, NUC Fans United, we used to go along. The trust were always there as well. Various other people. There was groups from Sunderland there. You met. It happened before every derby game. We met in, I think it was Gateshead Civic Centre on a number of occasions, where it was discussed about the police and where the police advised and talked about how they were going to police the game, what their expectations were. And various people could get up and could throw their lot into the ring and tell the police what they thought about that and what they thought about that. That obviously doesn't happen anymore. You don't have that sort of dialogue. Ironically, the guy who ran that runs the security at Sunderland now. He's a retired police officer, but he used to have. I think it was Superintendent Neil. He used to have that dialogue when he was the head of Northumbria Police football task force, and they did the whole of the security for Newcastle games. As I say, now works as a head of security at Sunderland, having retired. But it's just a shame that the dialogue has moved on. That the police now in a situation where they just dictate the terms and that's it. There's no dialogue, no conversation taking place. And if it is taking place, it's just club to club, and obviously not supporter, and no supporter involvement in that, unless NUSC and NUST have been there and haven't mentioned it, which may well have happened. But I think the dialogue Newcastle have had will have been supporter liaison. Matt Willis talking to the guys, and that's probably been about it. Just advising them on what they've been told, and taking the nod, which is, if we don't accept this, lads, then we'll only get the 2,500 tickets, and the target was always to get as many people in as possible. So let's see what happens. But good job it's on the TV. It's a Saturday, but it's a lunchtime kickoff, and what I'll be really, really interested in is to see how Northumbria police the 6,000 as they're heading to the ground, how they police the 6,000 before they get on the bus, and what sort of restrictions they make, if any, on pubs in Newcastle before kickoff, in terms of opening to allow the lads to have a drink before they get, because I can see this turning into a totally dry trip. That'll be the next thing, as that'll come out in the next couple of weeks. By the way, no pubs are allowed to open in Newcastle before 10 o'clock, something like that. You've got to be on your bus for 1:45. No alcohol on the bus. Just marking his Kiora.
Steve Andy Ford said, is that actually true? The clubs only pay for policing inside the ground?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. That's why some clubs you'll see that they have far many more stewards and very little police. There's no fee. This has been a bone of contention with police chiefs for many years. And it's exactly the same as if you organise a protest at Eldon Square or the Monument. You don't play for the policing. They might have some input into what goes on. They insist on you stewarding your own protest marches and things like that, and provide and having a liaison point if you're organising events. But you don't pay for the policing on anything like that, and you don't pay for policing outside football grounds off the footprint of the stadium.
Okay, Doug Hall says, here's the club saying we are now an international club with fans from all over. Now we're a club that only has fans from Newcastle, hence the bus situation. And Mark says, breaking news, anyone found to be singing or swearing on the bus will have their ticket taken away. I can see it coming. Mind the Mackhams are absolutely foaming about this, because we've also been given the pitch side area. That really, again, I think is ill thought out. Given the top end would have made a big difference. I think that would have been a lot safer. But actually putting Newcastle pitch side, really, we know what comes with the derby. We know what comes with the excitement and the passion of a derby. I just think you're asking for trouble doing that. I think I was at the last derby at St James at the Stadium of Light was a under 23s game, and I went down there. I think there was about 2,000 of us travelled down for that game. Elliot Anderson played in it, if I remember rightly, or was it Sorensen? Sorensen played in it, and we went down there under our own steam. We went down in the car actually, but we were given the upper levels. So to give us the main stand, wow! I mean that. I just think that it's a wonder the police have allowed that. It really, really is. Yeah. It really, really is.
And if you remember, we used to be on the
clock stand.
Right hand. We used to be on the right hand side, didn't we, Steve?
The clock stand paddocks we used to get.
Yeah, but then if you remember, Sunderland fans complained that we were creating more atmosphere because we were near.
That's right.
Pitch. So they put the move up. They also switched the away fans to the other end of the ground. So you're now on the left hand side, the side towards where the swimming pool and such like is, rather than the Kia Hardy Way side. And away fans are always just in the top tier. But apparently for this game, to accommodate the 6,000, which is still less than the 7,500 we're entitled to under FA rules for cups. The only other area that they can give, and they do have season ticket holders in that lower section of the ground. But we're being given the entire portion behind the ground, behind the goal now. So yes, it's caused them a lot of hassle because season tickets have been shifted, season ticket holders have been moved. They've still got plenty to choose from, haven't they? Because it's never full. But it's just like the way it goes. All the season ticket holders they've got are going to be accommodated. It's just they're not sitting in a normal seat. But no, it just goes to show, though, doesn't it? No matter what you do, somebody's going to be upset. Somebody's going to be disappointed. The Mackhams are just annoyed that we're getting the full allocation. That's what they're annoyed about.
Yeah.
They want as few as possible inside that ground. In fact, they would have been delighted if there was no fans in that ground, wouldn't they? Because that's the nature of the rivalry, and they would prefer that, whereas we would prefer to have as many as them in the ground, so we can have an atmosphere that is what derby's all about. It's the to and fro, and it's that. But they're going to get themselves really, really worked up. They're going to be like Everton fans by the end of it, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I haven't seen that about Everton's ground, but I think they've got more problems than getting the ground open. Somebody mentioned the Mighty Mag saying it's been pushed back to 25, 26. That's if it opens at all. When you read some of the horror stories that potentially could befall Everton, but that's that's for another day. This Sunderland thing is it's going to create a stir over the weekend. It's going to be the latest thing that people are going to get their knickers in a twist about, unfortunately, and. As always, we will talk about stuff on here and try to discuss it in a sensible manner. Okay, we've got about 25 minutes left of the show. Let's have some lookalikes. Lots of these circulating. Who's that?
Robert Plant.
Oh, Robert Plant. That's right, Robert Plant. I couldn't remember. And this one, Steve.
Oh no, I don't know that one. Let's have a look.
Is that Lionel Messi?
Lionel Messi. Yeah, Messi.
That's very good, isn't it? That is very good. That isn't. That one doesn't look like it's been planned.
Yes. One eye.
It is.
One eye.
It is. It is. You've got to squint. You've got to squint a bit. Yeah. Very good. Well, here's Trailer Swift, Eddie the Eagles' cousin.
I shut my eye. That's still.
You can open your eyes now. And I'm looking for Hasty. I'm pregnant. I'm not sure what on earth that means, what that's supposed to be, Steve. But don't blame me. I'm just the messenger.
Exactly.
Okay. Under some other lookalikes. Nobby and Antoine Sevierski. Thanks, Stu. It's a new one. I'm not sure who that woman is, but that is Donkey from the Shrek films. Thanks to Lee, Hasty might have fooled the Jedi in a galaxy far, far away, but he hasn't fooled me.
That's classic. That
it's a new one. It's a new one, Steve.
Yeah.
This is an old one, but we've had this one a few times.
Yeah.
Nicola Sturgeon and Little Jimmy Cranky. Yes, Milady and Nigel Farage.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, it's not bad, that.
And this one's a perfect one.
Fantastic.
And Step 2 and Corbin.
I thought it was Jamie Vardy and Corbin.
Aye.
And I had a few people say my son looks like Lewis Miley, which I can't see personally.
I know where Stu's coming from. Aye.
But thank you, Stu. He did give us permission to use that photo as well. So thank you for that, Stu. Harry Redknapp and Annie Edson Taylor, the first person to survive going over Niagara Falls in a barrel.
Wow, that is spooky. That
good one.
Yeah,
that's a proper looky likey.
Oxlade Chamberlain and Leonardo. What on earth he was pulling that face for, I'll never know. Klopp and his weird doppelganger. Very good.
Aye.
And that's a tweet which has got stuck in there, but we'll go with it. I'll get rid of it. Do you know where I can get it to? Not up the top of my head. Very good.
Oh God.
Thanks to Rita for these. Sean Dyche and Phil Mitchell.
Very good.
Not bad. Not bad.
Jim Rosenthal and Paul Heckenbottom.
Ooh, no, that's a new one.
Mm-hmm. Quite a good one. Good likeness. Philippe Coutinho and Meghan Markle. Very good, Rita. And this one from Rita. Wouldn't be lookalikey without you, she says.
I was waiting for it.
Jermaine Pennant and John Legend.
Yes.
Another Steve Wraith one. Who's that getting off the Milan coach? Says Mark. Not me, I'm afraid. This was a brilliant one from Stu Penman. He says, that's sewn up the winner of Toon Lookalikey. That is not Jason Tyndall. It's the guy from Gladiators.
Wolf. Yes,
Wolf. And Matt Dillon and Geordie Freddie Mercury. He's been a bit of a star, that guy. That was quite good as well from Paul Whitfield.
Yeah.
And the winner this week, again from Paul, Supermac and Tim Canterbury from The Office. Brilliant stuff. Well done, everybody. Thanks for sending them in. We will come back with more Toon Lookalikes next. Okay, Newcastle United take on Fulham. It's a good old-fashioned 3 o'clock kickoff tomorrow afternoon. It's not televised. You have to catch the highlights and catch match of the day. Anthony Gordon is a doubt, as he did take a bit of a knock in the AC Milan game midweek. But Dan Burn is okay to continue after returning on Wednesday. There was a slight update on Sven Botman from Craig Hope tonight to say that he could be on the bench tomorrow. But there was also a confirmation that Harvey Barnes and Joe Willock would both remain sidelined now until January. Kieran Trippier misses tomorrow's game. He serves his one-match suspension. And 3 other players are walking the tightrope tomorrow. Jamal Lascelles, Sean Longstaff and Joe Linton are all on 4 yellow cards and could end up with a ban for the next Premier League game. And Newcastle, of course, looking to hit 7 home wins in a row, first time since 2002-2003. As for Fulham, Marco Silva's side arrive on Tyneside after 5-0 wins against Notts Forest and West Ham. Their away form has been pretty poor, though. 1 win, as Steve Hasty mentioned earlier, 1-0 win against Everton on the opening day of the season. They have had draws against Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Brighton, away from home, and defeats at Manchester City, Spurs, Aston Villa and Liverpool. They've scored 26 goals in the Premier League. 16 of them, though, have come during the last 4 games. Of course, 2 5-0s in amongst all that. And they've had 9 different players on the score sheet in those games. Referee tomorrow is Sam Barrett. It's a new name for Newcastle United fans. He is 30 years of age. He's from Yorkshire, and he refereed his first Premier League game just 2 months ago. That was the Fulham-Sheffield United game, which finished 3-1 to Fulham. Saturday is going to be his 8th top-flight appointment. He was a former player, played at Halifax, but his career was curtailed by injury. And VAR, which is often switched off and is a waste of time and space, is Michael Salisbury tomorrow. And don't forget, Steve Hasty and the gang, as always, from the food bank, will be outside St James's Park. And the usual bucket shakers will be there, and the stall on Strawberry Place. And Jamie Rubin will once again double all cash donations, which are made on match day. So, as always, we have Toon Stato to give us his lowdown on tomorrow's fixture.
Hello and greetings from the weekly Stato guy from Bulgaria. What a painful defeat against AC Milan. Thankfully, the games are coming thick and fast, and we are having a game against Fulham tomorrow at St James's Park. We are without a defeat against Fulham in the last 6 games in the Premier League, also doing the double over them last season. We destroyed them at their stadium back in October with 4-1, and then in January, you might remember the last minute Alexander Isak winning goal. Fulham, however, are in red-hot form, winning 2 consecutive games at home by 5-0, and overall scoring 16 goals in their last 4 games, or 4 per game. This is more than they scored in their previous 15 games in the league, which was a total of 15, or 1 per game. If somehow they score 5 against us, it will be only the 3rd time that a team in the Premier League scores 5 or more in 3 games in a row. Chelsea did it in 2010, and Man City did it in season 2017-2018. The star man Kieran Trippier is out for us, and so far he has 7 assists during the season, which equals his total number of assists from last season. He's on course to surpass Matt Ritchie, who still holds the highest number of assists for Newcastle in recent years, with his 8 assists during season 2018-2019. You well know that Newcastle is very strong at home, winning 7 out of games so far in the league, or 81% success rate. Only Sheffield United, with their few wins in the Premier League at home, have a higher percentage win rate at home, close to 88. Fulham are not that great away from home. They won only their first game at Everton on the first day of the new season. Since then, they're winless in 7. Let's hope that we manage to break the succession of 3 defeats with a nice performance on Saturday. How are you, lads?
And once again, big thanks to Andre for his hospitality last weekend. And as always, he's wonderful pre-match Toon Stato section. So, Steve, again, I always say it, big game because it's our next game. But after 3 defeats, Newcastle will look to stop the rot tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I carry on, Steve, just want to say a big hello and best wishes to a friend of ours, Nick. He went into hospital for a knee operation and ended up waking up in a totally different hospital. Had a bit of a problem. Hope you're doing all right, Nick.
Get well soon, Nick.
Yeah, we'll get you back on the road. Get that going. I'm sure he looks like he's going to be listening to the game on hospital radio. Maybe somebody might put the TV on for him as well if he gets a chance. But no, I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow, Steve. It's back to the grind, isn't it? It's back to the league. This is the nitty gritty. This is what it's all about. Picking up points. As Andre said, 6 straight wins. We're now looking for the 7th win on the bounce. Fulham don't seem to have the ability to win away from home, which says an awful lot about them. 2 5-0 wins at home, but not getting anywhere away from home. Just obviously a bad travellers. They've got some decent players among them. William, always like the look of William whenever I've seen him play. He's 34, 35 now, and he shouldn't be giving teams like Newcastle United and youngsters the runaround like we've seen on Match of the Day of late. Jimenez used to be at Wolves. Seems to have got his scoring boots on eventually. I like the look of that Paulinho that they have in midfield. And somebody mentioned earlier in the week, if there was a midfielder that you would want to see come to Newcastle to strengthen, and a lot of talk of various midfielders coming in, he would be somebody that would really excite me if we got him playing alongside in a midfield with Bruno and Joe Linton. He's the real deal. No question about that. So they've got some decent players. They've got a decent manager. I always liked Silva. I mean, he went off the boil a bit for a lot of people at Everton. He did well at Hull for a period of time. He's another one of these, a bit like De Zerbi at Brighton. You don't know what you're going to get from him. You're either going to get quite reserved and controlled dugout, or you get him going to get absolutely maniac, So that's going to be something to look out for. And if things aren't going his way, he does tend to be very much a screamer and the arms flying all over the place and the finger pointing. So that's going to keep Mad Dog Tyndall busy, isn't it? Just trying to keep winding him up with doing his little bit while Eddie concentrates on what's happening and getting the messages from the rest of the coaching team. But no, I'm looking forward to it. As you say, 3 o'clock kickoff. We'll be there for the food bank. Really the last one before Christmas, so it's important. We've had some great support, but the generosity of Newcastle fans never in doubt. And the way that everybody's rallied around this season again. This is now our, I think, 7th or 8th season we've been doing this. We only were going to do it for one game, remember, but it just shows you where we are as a city when the demand and the need for a food bank is still there, and Newcastle fans are doing their best to support the West End food bank, or as it's now known, the Newcastle Food Bank, because it's spread its tentacles into the East End and into the north of the city as well, because that's where the need is now stretching, which says an awful lot. And there are other food banks as well, Steve. There's one down in Whitley Bay. There's the lads in Gateshead and the lasses in Gateshead that run the food banks as well. So it's not just Newcastle Food Bank, but it's right across. They even do, there's a group of supporters do similar at the Stadium of Light sometimes on match days as well. And there's quite a little network of food bank groups now linked to football clubs, which sad indictment, but it's the nature of where we are as a society. But getting back to football, looking forward to it, Steve. 3 o'clock kickoff, and then meeting some of the lads afterwards for a little bit of a Christmas knees up before both John and myself gain an extra year next week. The less said about that, the better.
Yes, we'll be celebrating that when we get together for our nufc matters drinking meal. So looking forward to celebrating an extra year for you both and Christmas. George, this is the Malcolm McDonald derby, isn't it? Newcastle Fulham.
It is. Actually, yeah, for me and all. Never mind. It's a funny one, because a couple of weeks ago you just said, nailed on home win, but the last 2 games have been absolutely electric. And that midfield that Steve talks about has been instrumental in sorting that. So we've got to be on our mettle, but I don't see why we shouldn't get 3 points out of tomorrow. It'll be an interesting game, though. A good game, I think, because Silva's teams always try and play football, and there's a lot to admire in some of their play, but occasionally they let themselves down just between midfield and the back three or back four, whichever they play, and that's where we'll score. I think, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to 3 o'clock and sitting beside my old pal Steve in the usual way, and I'll have an hour at the food bank before we go into the ground. And the whole thing's, as I said, for me, it's going to the match as an occasion again, and I think that's very important. And let's hope tomorrow's an occasion with a good win at the end of it.
Okay, well, my prediction's a 1-1 draw. Steve, what about you?
I'm going to go 2-1, Steve.
2-1 win. And George?
2-0.
2-0. And just looking slightly ahead, George, you'll be on the fans forum, of course, on Monday. But we will just get a quick prediction from both of you for the Chelsea quarter-final game. I'm going to go 2-1 win to Newcastle in the quarter-final game. Steve?
I was going to go 1-0, Steve. I think it's going to be really, really tight. And I think it'll be the odd goal in one, and I don't think it will concede. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 win. Everything crossed as well.
Yeah. George, do you think we'll progress?
Me too, yes. 1-0. That's a good call, Steve. Because that's what I felt about it. That they aren't tearing up trees in front of goal at the moment, and let's hope it stays that way.
Yeah. Okay. We've got about 10 minutes left, so we'll have a couple of quick fire questions, lads, because there is a couple of questions came in. Yes or no, Steve? Tom Dixon says, do you think we'll finish above Aston Villa this season? I'm going to say no.
Oh, I'm going to say yes. I think we will. I think that they're riding high at the moment, but I don't think they're one of the only clubs in the Premier League that hasn't had an injury problem yet. And I think it's their time will come when they'll struggle. And I don't think their squad's deep enough. So I think we will end up above them. Okay, George?
Yes, I think we will. It'll only be I think we'll just be one below, or maybe two. But I think we'll finish above them because I've got an awful feeling they'll fall away. They've had a very lucky run with things like big injuries, for example. And so I think their turn's to come. And yes, I think we'll finish above. It won't be far above, but one or two places above them. Yeah.
I think they rely on Ollie Watkins. I think if Watkins gets an injury and he's out for a period of time, 3-4 games, I think that's when they'll struggle. I think he's key for them.
Won't be good for my dream team either. Mozza says, question, if you were Dan Ashworth, would you leave us for Man United? Would I leave Newcastle United for Manchester United? No, I wouldn't, Mozza. Steve?
You know what? People are mercenary in football these days. If somebody offered him a ridiculous amount of money to go to Manchester United, I'm sure he would. Would I personally? No, I wouldn't. But I'm not Dan Ashworth and I'm not in that position. I wouldn't leave because I'm a Newcastle supporter as much as anything. But Dan Ashworth, it's a career for him. And if the opportunity came and it was one of those one of those offers that he couldn't turn down financially, then I think he probably would move on. And it wouldn't, we can live with it if it did. It wouldn't be like losing an Andy Cole and not bringing anybody in. The days of worrying about backroom staff leaving, directors of football leaving, or whatever you want to call them, it just shows you where football's moved on to, doesn't it? When we're looking at support staff being transferred to other clubs, Steve.
Yeah. George, if you were Dan Ashworth and Man United came calling, would you leave?
No, but if you look at his pattern of his career, I think he's followed the money. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah. That's a fair comment.
Yeah, and but personally, no. I think the people that are in there now, if the 5-year plan even starts to work partially, they're going to be in a fantastic place with a club that's going to be doing fantastic things. Can you say that about Manchester United? Because I think they're going to be saddled with the Glazers for the next 5 years. I don't think they're going to get rid of them. And that's the problem. They're always going to be like that. So, no, I wouldn't be going into what really is a hothouse of all sorts of problems inside, where the prediction for the future for us is got to be bright, hasn't it?
Yep, definitely has.
And I'm sure if he's got any brains about him, he'll know that. He'll know that.
Okay, try to get through a couple more before we finish. Would you guys drop Lascelles and put Burn in at centre back? Says Barry. No, I wouldn't. I would keep Lascelles in, Barry. Reason being that I just think Dan Burn is still not fully fit, and I presume you're talking about tomorrow. Jamal Lascelles is in the form of his Newcastle career. I think it's safe to say, despite the last 3 games. I wouldn't put him in at centre half at the moment. That's my choice. I think the last thing we need is we're losing Trippier tomorrow. We're going to have to rejig a little bit. We've changed with goalkeeper. Try to keep it as close as it has been for the last few weeks, at least. But I wouldn't tomorrow. Steve?
What, replace lack of pace for lack of pace? The answer is no.
Simple answer to a simple question, George.
No, and my reason be the same as yours. Jamal Lascelles has, in some ways, performed miracles to stay where he is, because a season, even more than a season ago, we were writing him off and selling him and hoping we'd get peanuts for him. And here he is. He's been playing out of his skin, if we're honest, and really showing his mettle as captain as well. So I wouldn't be changing. But Steve's right. Yeah. Dan Burn's just coming back. What you don't want is a half-fit Dan Burn trying to catch up with everybody else. Let him ease himself in with a couple of substitute runs. That's fine, but I wouldn't be throwing him in at the deep end in place of Lascelles. No.
Moz asks the other question. So in the meantime, given Dubs' last 3 games, Dubravka, do we play Karius tomorrow, Steve? I would say yes. I would give Karius a run out tomorrow. I would give him a game tomorrow. I would keep Dubravka for the Carabao Cup on Tuesday. That would be my reasoning. He's had 3 games. He's conceded 9 goals. I think we could get away with that tomorrow.
I'd go the other way, Steve. I would play Dubravka and keep Karius for
Tuesday.
Carabao Cup on Wednesday night. Was it Wednesday or Tuesday?
Tuesday. Yeah.
I'd keep Karius for that. And then if Karius had an absolute stormer against Chelsea, then Karius would then be in the box seat for claiming the jersey.
Good logic. Good logic. Okay, George.
Yeah, I stick with Steve Hasty. I think we're stuck with Dubravka for tomorrow, I think, and Karius for Tuesday. Yeah, that would be my, for the similar reasons to Steve Hasty as well.
Okay, just trying to find something that we can answer quickly. Trying to get through. Alan Thompson, lads, we all talk of signings, but who would you sell? I'd try to get rid of the ones who are still on loan. If you could get rid of a Hendrick or a Hayden, it would be a massive bonus for Newcastle. It would help us with a financial fair play. Absolutely. At this moment in time, players who are sitting at St James's injured, aren't going to go anywhere anyway. But I would try and get Jeff Hendrick, Ryan Fraser. If we're not going to use Harrison Ashby, then get rid. Jamal Lewis is another one. Isaac Hayden. There's your players right there who you could try and do a permanent deal for. But I think, unfortunately for us, probably at least 2 or 3 of them are on permanent loan deals till the end of the season. So you're going to have to wait till the summer. But those are the players you want out. Some of them will be out of contract. I think Hendrick's out of contract at the end of the season. Maybe Fraser is as well. I'd have to check. But they're the players you want out. Anybody in the current first team at the moment? The answer is no. Steve?
Manquillo.
Richie.
Emil Kraft. If I'm looking to bring players in that can come straight into the starting 11, replacing players that are squad players, and players Dummett's another one.
Kraft.
So it moves on, and then I would be expecting the players that we're bringing in to come straight into first team, and some of our first team current regulars in the first team be coming into that position that are accommodated by Manquillo, by Richie, by Kraft, by Dummett. That's where the movement's going to be. That's where there's a shift, and then in the goalkeeping situation, it's going to be whether or not you move out the likes of a Dubravka now or at the end of the season. Whether Gillespie's never going to get a game. So are you looking to bring a younger goalkeeper in with a bit of ambition? Because all these players are also taking on from an age perspective. We had a fairly young squad. Now we've got a relatively old squad. When you're talking about Richie in their 30s, Dummett in his 30s, Kraft's probably coming on to probably 28, 29. So moving players on is part and parcel of the game, but the squad players that need to be moved on are the ones I've mentioned.
Yeah, same for you, George.
Yeah, and you and Steve have mentioned all the names that I could think of, for the very, very good reasons. A, that they're not getting the game. B, they're starting to get the wrong side of 30, and all of that. And also, the message has been sent, isn't it, by the club? They're not registered for Europe or anything like that. So that tells you where the club's thinking is. I hate to be harsh at some of them, because Matt Ritchie, whenever he gets on, runs his legs off for the team. Manquino, well, we've been very kind to him. We've been very fair to him, I think. And yes, the manager praises the fact he trains hard. He does well in training and all that sort of thing. But he's a make weight at the moment. With all the financial fair play issues and other issues, we can't afford to have many make weights. We've got to have people who are contributing all the time and positively, not just hanging on with their fingernails.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to the moderators. Thanks to Toon Stato for chipping in as well. Let's hope Mitch has had a good sleep wherever he is. He's clearly slept in, come back home, had a few bevies and had a lie down. He'll be waking up in a mild state of panic. But as always, we hope he's okay, and we'll see him next week. But for now, George, Steve Hasty, enjoy the match tomorrow.
Good to see you, lads. Good to see you.
Thanks for tonight, and we will see you next week. Take care, lads.
All the best.
See you. Ta-da.